I did my first big hike when I was 21 years old. I remember we did about 90 kilometers, 5 really hard days through some pretty harsh Tasmanian wilderness. And at the end of it, I was sure that I was gonna come home the rippedest, most leanest version of myself that has ever been. At the time I was in college, drinking and partying maybe 3 or 4 times a week. So I definitely had some belly fat to lose. But much to my disappointment, when I got back and looked at my body fat, nothing had really changed. But over the years, what I've learned is that hiking can actually be one of the best ways to improve your body composition as long as you follow a few simple principles. So whether you're carrying so much weight that it's slowing you down, or you just want to maintain a healthy body composition as a hiker, the tips in this video are going to help you. I want to kick things off by saying that there are plenty of irresponsible ways to lose weight, and aiming to do this on a long distance through hike is definitely one of them. So don't go out and try and hike yourself lean on a through hike. Not only is that radically dangerous, it's just not going to be sustainable, even if it does work for you, which it probably won't. So instead, follow these simple, time-tested principles that we're sharing in this video that will result in meaningful fat loss and also something that you can sustain for the long term. Later in the video, we'll share 5 top tips, but let's go through some principles first. The first one is burn a clean flame. Let's be real, there's a lot of hikers out there doing big miles, but they're also consuming a lot of excess empty calories that contribute very little to looking good and feeling better on the trail. And that's partly because the food that we tend to eat when we're hiking tends to be high in calories, high in fat, high in sugar, high in just about everything. And that's because your typical hiking food is designed to be super rich in calories, and it's far from being a balanced meal. But just because you're hiking, it doesn't mean that you have to eat this high calorie snack food. And that's what burning a clean flame is about. It's about preparing your own healthy snack food at home and building that into your pre-hike ritual. I like bringing nuts, seeds, dried fruit, chopped vegetables. I like to bring carrots and hummus, and it's enough to fill the belly and give me the energy that I need on a hike without adding a lot of unnecessary empty calories. This is why we call it burning a clean flame. If you think about your gas stove is going to burn much better, much cleaner using a really good quality fuel source, and the same happens with your own body. So if you want to drop some body fat, here's the lesson. Prepare your own food at home rather than buying pre-made snack food. And that way you can prepare exactly the right type and amount of food while still having enough energy to safely get the job done. Principle 2 is about spreading out the miles. If you are hoping to hike yourself lean, then I would suggest you do shorter, more regular day hikes that are less physically demanding. We all know what it's like to have a long, tough day in the mountains. You get back to the car, you're starving, and you're just ready to pound 5 cheeseburgers. So if you're used to hiking 20, 30 or 40 miles on the weekend, try and spread those miles out more consistently throughout the week. So your average person will burn 200 to 400 calories per hour when they're walking. You'll be on the higher end of that if you're wearing a backpack or going over some undulating terrain with some tricky hills. And that's about 4 times above your basal metabolic rate. And that is not an insignificant amount of calorie burning, especially if you're accumulating those miles throughout the week. And perhaps the best thing about walking and hiking in order to lose body fat is that it carries a very low injury risk. And injury is a surefire way to stop progress. And when compared to a hard session in the gym, whether it's in the weight room or something like a HIIT class, walking and hiking carries with it a much lower recovery demand, meaning you can do this more frequently. And you won't have that insatiable hunger that comes from doing a really hard gym session. So let's get specific on this. I recommend shooting for somewhere between 7,000 to 10,000 steps per day. But a key thing here is to understand that the daily average over a week is what's important, not the accumulation at the end of the week, but the average of what you do every day. Some days you might manage more, sometimes less, but the average is going to be somewhere between those 2 numbers. That's the sweet spot. So you have the potential to burn just as many calories as a hard gym session, but it won't raise your hunger levels anywhere near as much. Not only that, but you can experience the secondary benefits that come from walking during the week, not just on the weekend as well. And if you watch the channel, and if you are a hiker, you know what those benefits are. Being out in the fresh air, enjoying nature. So think of this as a way of discovering micro hikes that could be hiding in the area around where you live. And mustering the same enthusiasm for these little micro hikes and small adventures is all part of the process. This is the mindset shift you need to have. Your self-talk is, I get out of bed early, I get out in the fresh air, I'm outside walking a couple of miles before I start my day. That's who I am. So there's a couple of my most powerful tips. As you guys know, this is not really my specialty in terms of weight loss. So I'm gonna bring in my friend Max, who's gonna dive into some of the deeper details on this. If you don't know Max, he's been on the channel a couple of times before. He's the author of the 2 Meal Day. He's been helping people lose weight sustainably for about 10 years. Here he is, Max Lowry, ladies and gentlemen.
If you're someone that has the goal of reducing body fat, there's a very good chance that you've tried and failed at this before. There are many reasons why this might happen, but usually in my experience, it's because people are often too focused on the short-term goal rather than long-term success. Setting goals can be useful at the start of your fitness and fat loss journey, but usually with my clients, if we want to get long-term success, we need to shift that focus from short-term goals and actually into enjoying the process itself. Once we start to enjoy the process of eating a bit healthier, moving a bit more, then it becomes a way of life rather than a short-term thing that you do just to hit a specific goal. And then obviously once it becomes a way of life, that's when you get that long-term success. Short-term fad diets do not work. They focus on restriction and deprivation. Cutting out carbs, juice fasting, only eating 800 calories is only going to get you so far. At best, you'll spend a lifetime losing the same weight over and over again, but more likely, and what I see with my clients all the time, is that it's going to have a fundamental impact on your relationship with food, your happiness, and ultimately your mental health. If you can't see yourself eating like that forever, for the rest of your life, then don't even do it for a day. It's going to be a waste of your time, effort, and money. Instead of trying to restrict and deprive yourself, instead of cutting things out of your life, what works is focusing on small habits incorporated over a long period of time. Unfortunately, this isn't sexy, it doesn't sell fat loss programs, but it works. Having said that, there are 5 habits which I see work time and time again with my clients.
Number 1, eat nutritious food most of the time. Things that don't come wrapped in plastic or foil. The best first step that you can start with this is by learning to cook one really delicious, nutritious meal that's quick and very fast and doesn't take a lot of hassle. That meal should be your fallback option, your worst case scenario. Start by cooking one meal.
Number 2, eat until you're full. Eat until you're full at meal times. This can be groundbreaking for many people because obviously people are trying to lose weight, therefore they're eating less at meal times. And often they're eating far too little. And what happens is hunger builds up throughout the day and it ends up with snacking and binging and ultimately over-consuming calories, which will stop the fat loss.
Number 3 is to fill up on protein. Protein really fills the belly, makes you feel satiated. If you're a vegetarian, you know that there's plenty of options. A good rule to go by is by eating something that it's at least the size of your palm. So that way you'll be eating a little bit less and still not have endless hunger.
Habit number 4, eliminate snacking. Quite quickly, once you start eating in this way, you will realize that mindless snacking is completely unnecessary. Snacking culture has become the social norm, but even in my lifetime, age 32, I remember when I was about 10, snacking was frowned upon. You know, it was all about eating your breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and snacking would ruin the main meal. For me, as a coach who's been working in this field for 10 years, snacking is a big problem, and just eliminating the snacks can potentially push you into that calorie deficit, which will get you the long-term fat loss.
Number 5 is to consider doing a 12-hour overnight fast. Don't think of this like intermittent fasting, but rather a tool that you can implement to improve the quality of your sleep, stabilize your blood sugar levels, and give your body a rest from the process of having to constantly digest. So these are just a few examples of small changes that, when done consistently, can add up to a massive change in your body composition. But the real benefits that come from these practices, I think, are actually far more valuable. I would trade having a six-pack any day to have sharper focus, less brain fog, better sleep, higher energy levels, and just feeling better in my body as I'm moving around. And when you learn to deal with stress in ways that don't involve food, these things tend to come together quite quickly. So I would start, if I was you, by implementing just one of these tips throughout the week. Don't try and do all of them, it's too much. Just pick one that resonates with you and try and implement it this coming week. And then come back to the video to remind yourself of all these other beautiful tips that we've shared with you. And finally, I just want to say, focus on the gains that you've made so far. Don't focus on the gap that lies in front of you to the goal where you want to be. You'll have good days, you'll have bad days, you'll fall off the horse. As long as you get back on, you'll be doing well. Let's go do some push-ups in the park, or fucking handstands, squats, anything.
Nice.
Nice.
Whoa.
Yeah, boy. Yeah, what's the call to action? You've got shit.
So yeah, check out my YouTube channel or my Instagram. Yeah, I mean I can say it if you want. Maybe you just say where can people
I
find
think
you?
it's probably more powerful if I say it. If you haven't already from last time, go and follow Max. He's got a YouTube channel, also an Instagram page. Literally like shit tons of free resources, really, really helpful stuff.
If you want to learn more about how to get sustainable fat loss, it's all there.
We'll see you on the summit. Oof. All right, that'll do.